Yesterday we learned basics, right? Basics how to create object. Very basic, very basic of Spring. The main two functionalities that we learn of IOC container is how to create objects of our classes for any use case backend side, whichever classes we write, like controllers, business, DAOs. For those classes, how to create objects is the first main goal, and the next, how to connect them. How to connect them. Okay, how to create objects and how to connect them. We learned in core Java object creation is possible with the new keyword and class.forName. How to create objects means by using new keyword and as well as by using class.forName also we can create. But that is core Java approach. If you want to create objects using Spring, you have to follow this approach. For XML file approach or for annotations approach, what you need to do, you have to create your Pozo class and you have to configure Pozo in XML file and you have to load your XML file into IOC container. There are two types of IOC containers available. One is lazy bean factory and one is early container application context. To create object only, the purpose is create object using IOC. So we learned that as well, how to create object using XML file and how to create object using annotations also. So in case of XML files, right away we configure whichever classes we implemented, controllers, service, DAOs, any utility classes configuration, anything that we configure into XML file by using bean tag. Everything we configure it using bean tag and we load this XML into IOC if it is a XML approach. But in advanced Spring that is avoided. You need not to configure any classes here. Instead, what you can do, you can use stereotype annotations. On top of controllers, they provided you @controller annotation for simple web application, for REST based application @REST controller given. Just you need to add the stereotype annotation on top of your controller class. You know, controllers are the first classes which connects with your front ends. These are the first classes who connects with the front end. So the data they will receive. Once they receive data, you need to send it to your business class to handle your business operations. To implement business class, we have @service annotation. On top of business classes, you need to mention @service annotation and you need to implement CRUD operations on DO class. All the database operations, save, update, delete, select. On top of DO class, a repository annotation you have to mention. And if you have any utility classes like file read write operations, some Excel operations, or some validations, you can create them using @component and any third party integrations like connection pool creation, Kafka integrations, anything, some catchy configurations. All that configurations will takes place under configuration class like connection pool classes and all. So this is very important. Configuration annotation is very important. All the configuration stuff we do here. I'll explain it in detail about it. But when you want to create object for your MVC classes, either without this annotation configure them in XML file or with these annotations you can avoid XML. With XML or without XML you can decide. So we have done example also, right? We have created So I'll show you once again how we created objects using simple core XML and annotations. Yeah. So to create object in core Java, so I have a simple class here. For any class, why we need object? You know that without object we can't call functions of any class. Whichever functions you implemented for a purpose, you cannot able to execute them. So I have a function hello here. So to execute this, I need object for the student class. In core Java, we use simple new keyword. You can create object. As soon as you created object, it will be loaded. It will be loaded into your JVM and you can call hello function. This is static way of object creation using new keyword. Using class.forName dynamically also you can create class.forName. You can pass any class name here at runtime and you can call new instance method. This way also you can create object. This is little powerful than static approach. Class.forName approach is powerful than this one because at runtime you can decide which object you want to create. Okay, so which is very powerful. We'll discuss about it later. So using class.forName also I can create object and I can call functions. So basically without framework, when you deal with objects, every time when you create an object, it will create a brand new object in JVM. So continuously it will put overload. When you create object again and again, it will put overload on your machine. But frameworks will not do that. Frameworks will not create unnecessarily many objects. Okay. So in Core Java, this is how we create object. That is fine. If it is a XML approach, if it is a XML approach, the same student class with the function I have here. To create this object, I have to configure it in XML file using bean tag. So once you configure this, you need to load it into container. There are two containers as I said. One is a lazy container bean factory and the another one is early container application context. So using lazy container, I am loading XML file and requesting container to provide object. Using getBean, I am asking, give me object, give me object. But when it is a container, when I request for objects multiple times, it will not create multiple. In the background, it will create only one. At first time request only, it will create as it is a lazy container, right? During loading time, it will not create. During first request, it will create object. Same object only, it will serve here also. So when I execute it, bean factory as it is a lazy one, it creates objects during first request only and you can call your function any number of times. You request for object also any number of times, but only one object which is created it will share. So when I compare these two objects are equal, it is saying because in the background it is not creating many and first object also creating during first request. When I use J2EE container application context, it is a early container. During loading time itself it will create object. It will not wait for the first request during loading time only. and the behavior is same almost. Excuse me. So an object created during loading time and you are executing your methods. So that is the major difference that you can see. Now here we used XML file to configure a bean class. Your application may have so many beans. I mean so many classes, controllers, services, DAOs, like that for every use case. When I have 1000 use cases, for each use case 3 classes if I count, altogether I need to configure, for an example, 1000 use cases if I have, for 1000 use cases, for each 3 classes if I count, if we have total how many tags I need to write, 1000 into 3, 3000, total 3000 classes have to configure in XML file. So a lengthy configuration you will be seeing here. It will create a lot of unnecessary issues going forward during maintenance also. Lot of manual configurations you need to do. As a developer, you have to spend a lot of time on configuration management. Instead of that, what Spring is suggesting, during writing your classes, there are some stereotype annotations. You use them. So as I mentioned yesterday, if it is a controller class, use @controller or @rest controller. Once again, why we need classes? To execute our functions. What are all those functions? It depends on your use case. Which methods you write for use case? If it is a registration methods, login methods. If it is some student save operations, save methods, like that. So for a purpose, we will implement them always. There is a purpose for every controller service DAO. So consider there is a DAO registration. I mean there is a registration use case for that use case, a controller. So as a developer, as soon as you write this class, mention @controller annotation. And when you write business, registration business, put @service annotation. For CRUD operation, when you write DAO, mention @repo annotation, repository. And as I said, for configuration class, you have to use @configuration. Here usually we will do all the database configurations, any third party integrations and all. Okay, I'll detail in detail. I'll explain that. And any utility classes if you have, you can use @component. Bus mention this annotation on top of your classes. And if I show the XML file, here I'm not configuring any classes. I didn't configure any class. I used XML schema here, and from that XML schema there is a context schema. Using that context schema, I'm applying component scan base package name. So this will function like a scanner. When you visit a shopping mall or any secure place, how they perform scanning to detect any devices from us. Similarly, Spring will perform scanning from these packages. It will perform a scanning. com.rview.sms package it will scan. Who will scan your IOC container? So if you observe, the pattern is same. com.rview.sms.config, sms.do, sms.service, sms.util, sms.web. So the parent package name is same for every package. Parent package name is same. So it will go inside each and every child package of this package, root package, and it will read all the classes which are mentioned with the stereotypes like controller, service, repository, configuration, and component. It will read all the classes which are mentioned with the stereotype only. and immediately it will create objects to them. When you load your XML and try to run this, right, it will create objects. See what it is doing. Your configuration object, DAO service, and the validation component annotation class and controller. All objects are created. But if I go to XML, no class is mentioned. It reduced that burden configuring them into XML file. Even if you go to Spring Boot also, the same way we create our classes. In Spring Boot also, we use the same stereotype annotations only. The extra one or two annotations we configure them there in Spring Boot. Remind me while doing Spring Boot, if I recall this example, right? You feel so lightweight. In Spring Boot, we avoid this XML file. Instead of this XML file, we use one annotation there at the rate the Spring Boot application in Spring Boot. That one will avoid XML also. We remove, take out this complete XML and we put this annotation. Same job this XML, whatever it is doing, same job it will perform here. But we will discuss in good discussion. We have long journey to discuss. So when I use stereotype annotations, no burden to me. You need not to, as a developer, you need not to bother about configuring bean classes here. Okay, cool. So I learned object creation. I learned object creation now. How to create using XML file, how to create using annotations also, how to create I learned. Who creates? IOC only, your container only. Application context container. This one is. So we learned how to create objects, but I divided my classes into my use case classes into classes multiple classes like controller service DAOs. So we learned how to create objects to them. So for a use case I implemented controller. For a registration form is an name, email address. Like this I have form. So when I submit this data to read, to handle business operation, to do CRUD operations, I have written multiple classes. To read data, controller class. To handle business, a business class. So some business logic here. To handle database operations, DO class. So we'll put some CRUD operations here. Finally, this connects with the database to save data permanently into DB. A basic use case. So far we learned how to configure these classes either through XML file or through annotations and how to create objects. So I can create controller objects or controller functions I can call. I can create business object, business functions call. I can create DO object, DO functions I can call. But who should call them? Consider as of I don't have front end here. As a developer I will call controller function, a read function. I will call in this place. I'll just mimic instead a front end form. I'll send some data to this method. Okay, fine. I will call this function. From here, who should call this function? Business class function or DO function. In a order, controller should make a call to business. Business should make a call to DAO. And DAO should make a call to database to save data. So how it will call? Object creation we have done. IOC container is doing it. So I'm happy that IOC container is helping. IOC container is helping in terms of object creation. A controller object created, business created, DAO created. So as a developer using getBean method, I can get this object here. Using getBean method, I can get object here. Something controller ID if I pass here, it will give object. So I can call this function. From here, controller should call business functions. Business should call DAO functions. So how controller should call the business? How controller will call or how business will call DAO? You need to connect them. One thing is missing here, connection. You need to connect them. You need to connect them. Not only object creation, after object creation, you need to connect them together. Then only then only you can able to make calls during development of your read method. If you want to make business method calls, you need business object reference here somewhere in this class. Same way business class, if you want to call DAO methods, DAO reference should be available. Then only I can call, right? In Java, if you want to call from one class to another class, you need that particular class object. So controller need business object, business needs DAO object. So somebody should connect them. Who will help from that friend? Your IOC only. IOC will help you. How? Yeah, we call that concept actually, the name is dependency injection. Okay. Via dependency injection, what we will do after this object creation, right? Every object you can inject into another object. Every object you can inject into another object. I create a DO object, inject into business. Business object, inject into controller. We can perform dependency injection. Okay. Why that dependency injection is for? Dependency injection is for connecting objects. Yeah, injecting. But the main goal or agenda is I want to connect them in simple words. Okay. So now let's see. Basically, I can give a vague example like I can pass any data from XML to bean class, but at the end of the day, the need of it is connecting your classes. This is the main agenda. I followed MVC architecture and divided classes into separate pieces. That pieces I should connect. Earlier in core Java approach, I used to create objects so that in controller I can create business object using new keyword, new business object I can create, or from business I can create new DO object if it is a core Java approach, so that I can call that next class methods. But this is very bad way. We never use new keywords. We never create. Instead, we creating IOC will create. Okay, cool. IOC you created. Good. Earlier, I used to have control as I created object. Now, same object I required in this class, how I can get? IOC is saying, I'll do dependency injection for you. I will give it for you. It is saying, I'll give it for you. There's a dependency injection concept. I'll help you. So now let's see in XML file approach how I can achieve that dependency injection. Dependency injection using XML file. Dependency injection using XML file. I'll create two classes. Just for your understanding, I'll create two classes and I'll give one full example. I'll be having a car class and I'll be having an engine class. So my car class needs engine. Like consider car is like controller. Just imagine this with your use case. And engine is like your business class. and I have one more class fuel. One more class called fuel. Just a minute. Just a minute. Just a minute. Okay. So fuel class. So fuel class, consider it as a DAO. Okay, DAO class. Now I want to connect them. In real, without engine, car will not work. Without fuel, engine will not work. Okay, just consider like your use case classes. Fuel, public void, use fuel, petrol fuel. So this use fuel method I want to use in engine. While engine starting, public void, start engine, starting engine, and I need fuel object here. I need fuel object here. So generally how we used to do fuel object wherever it is required we used to create, and we can call methods use fuel. But that is bad way. You should not create objects. Instead you creating this object here, put it as a reference. Avoid this new way of creation. You don't create it. Already container creating it for you, right? That object it will pass here. How it will pass? You need to put one setter method here for dependency injection. Using this method from XML file, I can inject it. Okay, this setter method will help IOC. This is a like a integration method for IOC. IOC will take help of the setter and it will pass fuel reference here. So using that reference, you can execute this method. So this entire connection will happen during running time. Okay, set fuel will execute during runtime. Okay, set fuel will execute, or you can create full reference fuel. Now car class is having engine dependency. Public void start car, start car, and I need engine object here. So whenever you need engine, you don't create direct engine object. So if I have engine object, I can able to call start engine. I can able to call start engine, but you need not to create it. Keep it here, and you need not use new keyword, already creating it, right? So that created object you can get use setter method, set engine. So the setter method will called by IOC. Set engine will call by IOC and this engine will be passed here. That is what we are doing, right? By using this IOC will pass a object here. That object I am assigning to this variable reference. So that you can call engine methods. So now using this setter method at runtime engine object passing to car. Using this setter method fuel object passing to engine. So now three classes are connected. But we didn't perform that dependency injection yet. So create a XML file and do that. How you will do that? See. First let's create fuel class object bean id fuel or your class name beans dot fuel class. Next engine class. Next controller class. Sorry, car class. Car engine fuel. Now I need to pass this fuel into engine into car. How you pass? In this engine class I have setter method set the fuel. You need to use this set fuel method and you can pass fuel reference here into that setter method. So what you can do in between this bean and bean tag, you can call setter method. Your set fuel method you can call. How you can call setter method? To call setter method, there is a tag name called property. And just give your setter method name only. Fuel. Set is not required. Or else give complete name. Set fuel. And here you need to pass this reference. You should pass that here with the reference tag attribute. Yeah. So now I am trying to pass this object, whichever object I am telling to IOC container. Container you create fuel object. Pass that fuel object into this setter method. When while creating engine object. So it create fuel object. It can create engine object as well as into engine object. It will pass fuel reference. And I need to connect that engine with the car also. So here also I need to call setter method. What is the setter method name? Set engine. So here you can call set engine method and you can pass a reference of engine. This reference I can pass here. Now three objects created, fuel object created, engine object created and engine object connected. I mean in engine object fuel is connected. And this controller car object created, engine object also connected to car. So all three objects are connected now. Fuel connected to engine, engine connected to car. Now if I call, load it into IOC container. I'll be using J2W container here, okay? Application context. Okay, why all these are not available? Because jar files not added yet. Include all the library. Application context dot get bean. I'll get car object. Car ID is C. And now you see C dot start car. C dot start car. When I call this, see what will happen. not expected. It is saying invalid property set field. Okay. Excuse me. So complete setter method name not required, it is saying. So just remove this sets. Okay, set is not required and run it. So set to fuel executed, set engine executed. So when I call start car, car is starting. Start car method is calling start engine is calling fuel, petrol fuel. So they can able to connect and execute this use case end to end. End to end they are connecting. Do you see? Here I only called car method. This car method is able to call engine method. This engine method is able to call fuel method. That is what my expectation is. But for that, I need this object. Okay, Spring is saying create variable and put setter method and perform dependency injection. So here, while creating your engine class, you can call your setter method and whichever object I am creating right during runtime, pass that as a reference. So I will inject it. So I'll connect them for you. So this is what happening there. Okay. So fuel object is created during business object means engine object creation. It is passing that fuel object into engine. Same way during car object creation, whichever engine object is already created, that engine object is passing here. So that it is possible to me to call. When I call car method, car is calling engine, engine is calling fuel. That is how easily I can able to do the dependency injection of my objects here. But if you see, as this is an object, for object dependency injection, I am using attribute called ref attribute. Only I can pass this objects any data if I want from XML file. Can I able to pass that data? Yes. Let's say private string fuel name. I want to inject a fuel name also. This petrol I don't want hard code. I want to pass this fuel name. Can I pass this? Yes. Simple string I want to pass into fuel. You can inject it. No worries. Using this setter dependency injection, you can pass any data. So here if you want to pass diesel, pass it. Petrol, pass it. Whichever you want. Using dependency injection, I can perform anything. I can pass any kind of data. Set fuel, set engine, set car, start engine. Start car, start engine, diesel fuel. But this diesel is not hard coded. I'm passing using this setter method. So which means Spring is providing you very extensive support. You can pass anything to your class. You can pass anything to your class. You understand how to connect them, right? So now let me show you that consider you have a class, like fuel or whatever, student or something. This class can have any type of dependency. You can have any data type, any data here. Any data in the sense simple primitives like integers or strings or arrays or collections or secondary type classes, predefined or user defined. Any type of dependencies you can have, any type of data you can have in your class. Any data as a dependency you can have, any data dependency you can have, that data you can pass, from XML file. That data you can pass from XML file by calling your class setters. There are two ways, okay? For each variable you need to have a setter, or for all variables you can have parameterized constructor also. There are two channels to pass the data from XML file. So in this class, if I have this data, integers data or strings, arrays, collections, or user defined objects like we injected, car class having engine, engine classes having fuel. So any kind of data I can have here, I can pass that via this setter method or via this parameterized constructor from XML file. If it is a setter method in XML file, we are using which tag? Property tag. If it is a constructor, same way we will use constructor hyphen argument tag. So using these tags to your class, you can pass any data, any value. Actual variables you have here, declarations only. You put all variable declarations only, and actual values you can pass from here. All inputs you can pass from here. Whichever inputs you want to pass. All inputs you can pass from here. You can pass using setter or you can pass using constructor. Any data you can pass. Any data you can pass from your XML file to bin class via dependency injection. But the most important one is connecting your objects. Connecting your objects is the most important thing. We learned that by using XML file, connecting objects using a reference and passing simple property also we learned. Okay, so this example passing any type of data may not much important, but I'll give you that example. In XML file approach, you will enjoy that by seeing, okay, this many ways the object is, data we can inject. Let me give you an example for that, okay? I'll give a complete example. Dependency injection of many data types via XML file. Many data types. I'm just creating a project, adding libraries. I'll give a nice example. You really like it. So I give simple student class with so many data types. So I'm giving name, private, long, phone number, multiple data types I'm using. Okay, so these are simple primitives, and you can use arrays also. String array of something fruits, private. I can use collections also. List of you can add list of strings, cricketers, set of countries. You can inject map also, right? Map will hold key value, states and capitals. So this many fields I want to inject. So for each field you can create one setter method. Set name, set phone, set fruits, set cricketers, set countries, set states and capitals. For each, you need to write one setter method and put here SOT set name method. You feel like after this example, okay, IOC is providing extensive support to pass any kind of data, not only connecting objects. Any data it is allowing me to pass. So generated the setter methods and generating one toString method just to print this data. Okay, all this data will be printed via toString. Now pass data from XML file to your class. Ins ID student class name beans dot student class. And this class is having name, phone, fruits, cricketers, and all right. Pass them. Simple name, property, name, value, of student name. Just calling setter methods. Okay. This setter method will be executed and name will be supplied. Phone, next to property, phone value, something else, long value, and fruits, array of fruits. So when you want to pass array of fruits, you need to use list tag. So that array of values you can pass here. Value, next one, list of cricketers. Same thing. For list also you can use same list tag. For array string same, for list also same. And next, set of countries. So here you use set tag. Under set you can pass values. And you can pass states and capitals. Map value, state and the capital. We need to pass key and value. For that you need to use map, and in every map you need to pass entry of key something state, TS, capital Hyderabad, K, Bangalore, MH, Mumbai. You can add like this multiple keys and values. So like this you can pass any data to your class. So just load it into your IOC and see is that real and will it uploads or not. You can see it will load. Get pin of what is your student ID, STD. So just print this STD and you can realize whether the data is supplied or not. Type mismatch phone number, long property. Long ago, long property. So it is not allowing L I given. Need not to give L. Okay. Okay. Set name, set phone, set fruits, set cricketers, countries, capitals, everything executed. And see the output. Student name it is showing. Name, phone, fruits, whichever we passed. Countries and cricketers, countries and states and capitals. Perfectly injected everything. And who will do this? Who do this job? And what is the purpose of it? You guys realized? Not only connecting objects, okay? Sorry. But what is the purpose of this? Why I need to do all this as a developer? What is the benefit? Exactly. And what is the benefit out of it? If I get control to pass data from XML file as a developer, do you see any benefit? Yeah. So basically, as I got the complete control to pass any data to my classes during implementation of these classes, I need not to hard code anything. Consider DAO class needs connection properties, driver name, URL, username, passwords. I need not to hard code them here. I can inject them, driver name, URL, username, passwords like this. I can pass them. In my business class, I need some URLs to call third party libraries. Maybe that URLs I can pass to my business class along with my DAO object. For my controller also same thing along with business object. If I need some inputs, I can pass them. Which means as a developer, you need not to hard code anything throughout your classes. Don't hard code anything. Everything explicitly you can pass. Whichever objects created, that objects you can connect by passing them explicitly. Not only that, if DAOs needs any configuration details, business required, controller required, anywhere, if you need any data, you can supply that from XML file. If it is XML approach, okay. So no longer we are going to continue this, but to make you realize that IOC container is capable to pass any data to your class. You can pass anything. Simple strings, pass. Numbers, pass. Arrays, collections, anything you can have, you can pass from XML file. It is supporting. Okay. So dynamically, I can pass anything to my classes. That is what I achieved it. So imagine your class can be any kind of class. It can be a controller or a service or a DAO class. Your classes can have any dependency, and that any dependencies you can supply from XML file. So your IOC container at runtime it will read XML data and it will supply to your classes. This is what we are calling dependency injection. Dependency injection. How it will pass? Either you should have setter method in your class or parameterized constructor. But these two are XML approach. While using XML approach, we use this stuff. Instead of these two, in annotations approach, we use an annotation. At the rate auto wired approach is the very important. In tomorrow discussion, we will see this. Okay. So because why auto wired approach is important, I'll explain you. Okay. In XML approach, okay, I can use the setters and constructors, I can pass data. But we see stereotype annotations to create objects automatically. In that scenario, actually, as a developer, you don't have any control over XML file because you're not doing any XML based configurations. In that scenario, you should take the support of container to do dependency injection. Container will support you when you mention auto. Okay, I'll in detail explain that to you in tomorrow discussion and we'll do it. Okay, I think so far nothing, right? Easy to learn. We created easy objects using XML file and we did some dependency injection through XML file, and we created objects using stereotypes also, and we did dependency injection using XML. And tomorrow we are going to see how to use annotations. This is very important. Stereotypes with this. Yeah, I'll give you example, constructor example also.